We have just witnessed chess history in the making, a moment so remarkable that I guarantee it will never be repeated in my lifetime. So what happened and why was it so remarkable? Well, first I need to show you this dramatic final round game played in the World Blitz Chess Championships and then put into context the scale of the achievement here. So Magnus Carlsen had the white pieces in this game and he was playing against a youngster, Nordebek Abdusatorov, who actually won the Rapid Championships last year and beat Magnus Carlsen in that victory. So there's some history here between these guys, real tension at the board. Magnus now kicks off with his pawn coming out to e4. So we see e5 from black, the knights now develop and the bishop comes to b5, pressuring this knight which is defending the pawn, so there's a threat to win a pawn. But black goes a6, says take this knight if you want. If this happens, then actually after you take the pawn, the queen can jump out, hits these 2 points, so you're not losing a pawn, you win it back. So instead the bishop, it slid back here, this knight developed, and now we see this pawn defending the e-pawn, and black goes b5, breaks that pin against the knight. So the bishop drops back, this bishop develops, and now the rook's pawn moves forward. Very classic idea to activate the rook in the corner, so black keeps things closed, pushes on with that pawn. Both players now castle the king, get it across to safety, and now this knight develops to this square, possibly it's coming here or here in future, and we see black now supporting the central pawn, and there's a threat now to bring this knight to the edge of the board, look to pick up the light squared bishop. So here we see the pawn kicking on to c3, gives that bishop some escape room, also challenges this pawn, and now the rook comes across to defend that pawn some more, also comes to this file where we can see lots of action opening up on the board. White activates their rook, and now they're looking to go pawn to d4, gain some space, so Magnus is overprotecting this pawn, and now knight a5 comes anyway, kicks back this bishop, and we see the pawn coming to c5 now. Whoops, c5 here. Now you don't pick on with this pawn, by the way. White actually has too many pieces defending that square. You're just losing a pawn. So back to the moves, we see pawn c5, setting up this V formation, a kind of Christmas tree I've heard it described as. And now d4 played, gaining space in the center. The pawn captured here. We see a recaptures. The b file's now opened for the rook. Now we see another capture here. This pawn takes back and the knight hops back to c6, so it's pressuring these pawns. Look at the clock times. Magnus is about a minute ahead now, and he now closes the position. He kicks on this pawn. He could have developed the bishop. That's the computer's favourite move. But he closes, kicks the knight into this square. Again, it attacks the bishop. Magnus wants to keep it, and now black misses a chance. a5 was good here to just cement this knight. It really cramps the white development. But instead we see this knight coming to the edge of the board, looking to come in here. Nice idea. But now Magnus goes a5. He doesn't let black do that one. And after the knight hits this square, it does look nice. But this knight hops back, opens the bishop to attack, and white remains solid. Bishop g4 played, pinning this knight. So this one now jumps out, attacks this, and also covers this c2 square. That's very important because this knight's looking to hop and fork these rooks. So for example, if the bishop takes now, queen recaptures, well there's no knight c2 fork, this knight covers. Very important. So the bishop actually drops back now. Rook a3 from Magnus. He covers this third rank, wants to support the knight. Also keeps an eye on this important square where both knights are maybe looking to jump one day. The queen now develops, connects the rooks, and it also now applies pressure on this bishop, which is defended by the knight. So if you could ever decoy the knight, then white would be in trouble. So the best move is to actually drop this bishop back to f1 here, come away from those tactics, but Magnus misses it. He goes bishop d2, and now black misses a shot. There was a really good move here of pawn to f5. Because after that pawn's captured and you take with the pawn, not the knight, because you have to hold the bishop, well then you can go e4. This one's pinned, you're threatening to win a piece, so you get this crazy line with pawn g4 breaking that pin, and the moves could go something like this: knight recapturing, then the bishop drops here, and now although this knight drops, it's no longer defended, very tactical stuff. Well, then you take here, queen recaptures, this is the best line, but black picks up this pawn in the centre. So the material is actually level, but the white king is looking a bit more open than the black king, should be slightly easier for black to play in practical terms. So a good shot missed. But instead we see the bishop capturing on f3 straight away, the queen recaptures, and now we get this knight c2 move in the air for so long. So it forces the recapture because the rooks were forked. Now the queen picks up here, but after the knight comes back to e3, it's white that is now picking up an initiative. The queen is hit, it moves into this square, the rook now defends the bishop, and now after queen back here, hitting this rook, the knight hops to this powerful f5 square, very often worth a pawn if it can get there because of the threats it puts around the black king. Plus the queen now defends this rook, which was attacked. So the bishop now came to g5, it was attacked, should have gone to f6 because now it runs into this pawn move, has to drop back, you can't take, that one's defended by the knight, and now rook c3 from Magnus, more tempos against the queen, and best was coming to b5. But here Nordebek, he takes the plunge, he wins a pawn, he'd love to get some counterplay with this passed a pawn now, but Magnus's pieces spring to life. He starts with g3, kicks this knight. Now it looks like you want to check, but then when the king moves, this knight's actually trapped. So instead we see the knight now sacrificing itself for counterplay. Coming back to g6 is technically best, but then white just gets everything they want. The rook comes to c6, this pawn's going to be dropping. This pawn can march up the board soon, then maybe to h6, undermine the protection of this bishop. This knight's a monster, the bishop is looking, so the whole position's awful. That's why we see this sacrifice, trying to drum up play, and now Magnus really cool and calm. He doesn't recapture immediately. If you do this, you're running into this pawn push. Hits the queen, also opens up the bishop on the rook, and yes, white can go queen g4 and remain better actually because of the attack around the king, but why go in for these complications? Instead, Magnus, he moves the rook immediately, hits that queen with two pieces. So it jumps away, he now hits the queen again with his second rook, more tempos picked up, only now does he take the knight when he's improved his rooks. Excellent play. Queen b2 now played, hitting that bishop. It was defended like this. This rook now activated, defended the d6 pawn, and now nice and cool and calm from Magnus. King g2, just looking after that king safety, handing back the move, and look at Nordebek's time, 3 seconds. He goes queen b5, and now Magnus invades with the rook. He's hitting this pawn again. How does black defend? Well, it's next to impossible to do so. So instead, rook e8 was played, going for counterplay, threatening e4, but Magnus ignores. Takes the d6 pawn, forks these pieces. e4 is the idea, forking these two, but now the knight hops back, picks up a pawn, and here white is simply a piece up, a whole knight, and pawns are level. Nordebek resigned, no time on his clock. So Magnus took the victory and clinched the World Blitz Championship, which in itself is an incredible achievement, but this also meant that he now clinched the Triple Crown. So he won the Rapid a couple days ago, and he won the Classical event at the end of last year. 3 different time controls. So not only has he won the Triple Crown of chess tournaments, but this is the 3rd time he's now done it, because he did it in 2019 and in 2014. So in my lifetime, we will never see one man win the Triple Crown 3 times in their career, I guarantee it. If you want to see more about the history of chess in 2022, then check out the video on screen, which goes into the detail of the chess cheating scandal. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.